Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crilley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today I'm doing part one of a two-part series showing the creation of an entire illustration, full color, from start to finish. This week I'll do the pencils, next week I'll do the coloring. Now this is very much inspired by the great illustrator James Gurney, creator of the Dinotopia books, in which he imagined a world where human beings and dinosaurs coexist. Should be a lot of fun to do this type of illustration. Let's get started with a few basic guidelines for drawing the body of a dinosaur. Alright, well this is not going to be one of these videos where I'm teaching you how to draw, something in a line-by-line way. I think you should all feel free to draw any type of dinosaur you want, or indeed just to use some of the illustration techniques in this video to apply to any number of illustrations. But for those of you who are trying to follow along, I can give you some pointers. Basically, note that the size of the head in general, you could probably fit two of those heads into the body, just in terms of proportions there. Otherwise, one thing that I'm doing is I'm making the top of the head a little wider than the snout, just for this type of, vaguely T-Rex-ish looking dinosaur that I'm going to be drawing. Well, we've got that pretty much in place. I want to go ahead and draw the hind legs. Alright, well, it's funny now that I said hind legs, I realized that these are the only legs. Up here are going to be arms, so pardon my misuse of the word hind for the legs. Anyway, a few pointers about the way that I drew these. You certainly want to get the width of the thigh. The thigh should be much wider. I would say at least 3 times, if you compare the width of this to the area down here. There is, of course, this sort of zigzagging quality. What is it with me and the word zigzagging lately? Sort of imagine that there's like a knee here, and then there's like a reverse knee back here as it heads down to the feet. And mainly, if you're going to have both legs visible, my pointer would be like, make sure that you're getting the distances the same, and the width and so forth. You can't have one leg looking different from the other. Although this one does actually, now that I look at it, look a little different from the other. Mark, practice what you preach, man. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead now and draw the arms and maybe also the eyes and the mouth. Alright, well, as I studied different illustrations of like T-Rex type dinosaurs, I noticed that some of them had a slightly curved upper lip. I guess it's not a lip. They don't have dinosaurs with lips. Upper line of the upper jaw, I guess we would call that. And then notice that the lower jaw is generally much thinner than the snoutal region, the ever popular snoutal region. And I'll be refining this, probably altering these contours as I go along, but just getting the basic lines in place, and to be sure, we'll be adding details of teeth and so forth later on. But for now, let's move on to talking about, the eye. I decided, again, based on illustrations and so forth I'd seen of dinosaurs, to get it right up here, pretty close to where the brow is, I suppose you'd call that. And then notice that the arms, the sort of notoriously small, seemingly useless arms, are down here closer to the legs than I would have imagined. If indeed the illustrations that I was studying are accurate. But as I said, this is not necessarily going to look like a true dinosaur, scientifically speaking. I'm just having fun with a sort of fantasy illustration here. But again, you kind of get an echoing of that zigzag pattern, but sort of heading in the opposite direction a little, it seems to me. In any case, I think we are ready to start drawing the fun part, and that is to have a guy riding on the back as if he's sort of on horseback, except instead of horseback, it's dino back, riding along. And so let's go ahead and get some basic guidelines down for that. Alright, well, as always, drawing a human figure is a whole lesson unto itself, and so sadly I've had to kind of decide not to focus on that too much with this video. But I suppose I'd say whatever human figure you do draw, you want to sort of figure out the natural place for them to be resting. I guess I figured I needed him to be a certain proximity to the head so that I could draw some, like reins that he holds onto for steering and so forth. Otherwise, it's a fantasy illustration. It's up to you. You could make this figure much smaller. I guess I figured I wanted him to be reasonably near the size of the dinosaur so that you could imagine him being in control, right? That if he were really tiny, you would sort of wonder, wait a minute, how can he control this gigantic beast? How come the dinosaur just doesn't turn around and eat him? He is a carnivore, after all. In any case, don't think too much about this illustration, guys. I'm not sure it makes sense. The next thing I'm going to do is draw just sort of like a saddle and so forth, maybe some baggage or luggage, suitcases that he's bringing with him. And that'll be the last thing that I do in terms of these basic guidelines. Then we'll knock it off with the time lapse and start getting into some of the details. All right, well, I think we've got enough of this in place, and now we can start getting into drawing some of the details. That's really going to be the fun part for this illustration, I think. And let's go ahead and begin drawing more of the details of the head here. I'm going to try to zoom in. Sometimes I can't zoom in any more than I've already zoomed in, but let's see if I can. And otherwise, we'll just move on to drawing the head. Okay, well, I was able to get in a little closer. First thing I want to do is fix this eye. He's looking kind of goofy, cartoonish, like Rex from Toy Story. I don't like confrontation. So I'm going to try to make him look a little more intense here in the eye, put some wrinkles underneath, and maybe also change the contour of the forehead here, just to make it a little more intense looking. Gonna go ahead and get a nostril here, more or less where you would expect it to be, right up in the front. And let's go ahead and get the teeth. Now, some illustrations of the T-Rex that I saw had an incredible number of teeth. It looked like dozens from front to back. I'm going to kind of modify that maybe and not go quite that far in terms of the sheer number of teeth. I did notice, though, that there was kind of like a fleshy, tendon-like area back here with that probably aided with opening and closing the jaw. So get those in place. What else can I say about the teeth? They're sharp. They're pointy. One thing I can talk about maybe briefly is my concept with this is to make this scene taking place in the snow, which I thought would make it kind of fun, and maybe a little bit like the Tauntauns in Empire Strikes Back, the second Star Wars film. Or is it the fifth Star Wars film? Don't want to wade into controversy here. But one thing I was thinking about was in controlling the head, by way of the reins. You probably could not strap all the way around the snout of the, or is it muzzle, of the dinosaur, and so they would probably attach something along the jaw, it seems to me, some sort of metallic restraining system, and then I can go from there and have the reins go up to his hand. I'm imagining a world in which these are almost domesticated dinosaurs, and so that they he just has to sort of do a few clicks of his teeth or whatever, and that can make the dinosaur move one direction or another. I think I'll do a little of these kind of Godzilla-style type plates, ridges that come up out of his head. Although, if you think about it, if he's riding on this on the back, you've got to kind of diminish these as you head down here, so that you can imagine a place where the saddle would go. It couldn't be placed right on top. Maybe they file them down. They file down the ridges on the back so that they can put a saddle in here. And I actually looked at photographs of horse saddles to get some inspiration for how to draw this saddle. Go ahead and put this back. Now I like this idea of him, you know, this is a beast of burden, and he's got lots of different bags and so forth that he's carrying. Maybe he's got water up here to quench his thirst on the long trail. Maybe let's get a second bag up here. I'm going to have a lot of fun later on with both the penciling and the you know, final detailing with the coloring, I should say. I'm gonna have a lot of fun getting into these sort of areas of the baggage, but I figure he's got some sort of rolled up tent or sleeping bag type of thing behind him up here. Looks like a cinnamon roll. My giant cinnamon roll. I never go anywhere without my giant cinnamon roll. That was weird. In any case, you know, I would encourage you just to be creative. Part of the fun of doing an illustration, a fantasy illustration like this, is sort of making it your own, imagining this world that it comes from. Like, for example, I figure that this thing here that goes across the top of his, or the middle of his neck is, you know, mainly just sort of decorative. Maybe his tribe, you know, and they identify themselves by way of some sort of diamond-shaped insignia that you can see an emblem on all the different things that he wears or whatever. It's kind of fun to see how far you can think this stuff through, inventing a fully realized imaginary world. And I think people looking at the illustration can sort of see that when they see all these little details. They know, hey, this guy really put a lot of thought into the world of this illustration. Well, anyway, later on I'll finish that off. You can sort of get the idea of how I do that. I thought that because I'm making this a snowy scene, that he would have a lot of fur. I think they did that in Empire Strikes Back, didn't they? Even though we're in this space age technology-filled world, they did have like these fur coats. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and maybe get some, almost looks like the Santa Claus costume here. I promise you I won't paint this red later on. Santa on his personal dino. Yeah, the sled is in the shop. Why do these weird things pop into my head while I'm drawing? But I thought, just for the fun of it, I'd have him holding a sword. Even though he's so high up off the ground, I wonder if he can really use this sword for anything. Let us imagine that he sees like these bat-like creatures up ahead that could swoop down and attack him. So he pulls out his sword so as to knock them away if they come after him. Yeah, that explains that. That justifies him holding this sword. Otherwise, you know, again, this is not sort of a how to draw video in the sense of here, everybody draw exactly what I'm drawing. Just hoping to sort of give you a sense of my process. Beginning with pencils, really working quite a lot of it out in pencil before moving on to coloring, what, like I said, I'm going to do next week. How about some tassels? These guys, they're tough, they're rugged, they live a nomadic lifestyle, but that doesn't mean they don't like tassels. Now, people who do horseback riding, you may be able to help me say what this is, because I noticed there was a saddle, but the saddle doesn't always go directly on the horse, that there's sort of some kind of blanket or something underneath that probably stops the saddle from chafing against the skin of the horse. Don't know if the dinosaur needs such protection, the dainty skin of the dinosaur, but anyway, I thought I would add that in there, and probably going to get some more sort of patterned detail, make it look a little more like a carpet or something. Let's go ahead and maybe finish that off back here before we get into a little more detail on the skin, the sort of hands and so forth. I do have to probably refocus. I think I will. I'll refocus the camera so that we can get a closer look at the legs, and then I'll carry on. Again, I'm going to try to really do a lot of this part of it real time, and we'll see what people think of that. I feel like when I do a two-parter like this, I have more time for doing real-time illustration, which is, periodically the big request. Stop doing so much time-lapse. So I'm going to refocus the camera, and we will carry on with doing more of this final pencil stuff. All right, so I'm not going to be getting hyper detailed with the surface of the skin. I'll just be sort of suggesting it by a bunch of little half circles. Maybe one of the benefits for me of when you haven't gone super up close, I think you can get away with not drawing every single scale, But I think it's useful to divide up the area of the body into two sections. I know I talked about this in a previous video where I described this as snake belly. And then I decided it was like the name of an alt-rock band. Snake Belly! Yeah, man, I was into Snake Belly before it was cool to be into Snake Belly. But these lines that go across here sort of do remind me of the belly of a snake. Oh, one thing I'm forgetting. There's got to be a way of attaching this saddle, right? Otherwise it'll just fall off, it seems. So I'm gonna add a strap here just sort of on the fly. The saddle strap, the ever popular Dino saddle strap, and so that's going to go down here. Got to get that in place before I finish off with the snake belly. And I don't imagine that it covers a whole lot of the tail, maybe just a little bit as we go across here. But yeah, I think that makes, instead of just covering the entire surface with the same type of scales, I think it can be helpful to, in fact, I think, this seems so straightforward, this round area. I think I'm going to break up the contour a little bit. Let's say that this particular breed of dinosaur has a slightly uneven chest area down here. This kind of stuff can make your drawing a little more interesting, I think. Not just for you drawing it, but for the people looking at it. And you can sort of see, I'm not going to draw every single scale. I'll have to do some of that time-lapse. But let's get a little bit into drawing these fingers, these claws. And I don't know if I've worked out how many. I suppose there would be three fingers on each hand. But down here, instead of just doing standard scales like I did up here, I think I'm going to make this look a little more like a chicken claw with these lines going across. And I'll be doing the same thing over here, although it's going to be in shadow, right? So I don't have to get quite so much into the details. This leg, I'll have the same thing back here where I can just do that in shadow. Speaking of the leg, let's go ahead and get on to that. I think adding some suggestion of musculature will make this seem more authentic. So I'm adding in these extra lines back here that suggest rippling muscles beneath the surface. The dinosaur likes to work out. Gotta be toning up those muscles. But I'm going to put this in first, sort of work out this musculature stuff before I go to the pattern of the scales. And I'm going to do the same thing down here with these legs. Like I said, it's sort of calling them chicken legs. I must be hungry or something. Making these lines that go across here. Let's get a second sort of fingerish thing down here. And like I said, he's going to be going through the snow, so part of this may be obscured a little bit by the snow that he's trotting through. And yeah, let's just imagine that this other leg is going to be pretty much a repeat in terms of what I drew here. I just want to maybe talk about adding a little more of the scales back here. not completely covering it, just sort of dropping them in here and there. I see illustrators do this. Sometimes it's more interesting to sort of leave things to the imagination instead of drawing each and every detail. Well, I think we're nearing the end in terms of what I call the final pencils. Oh, wait a minute. Shouldn't he have some sort of stirrup or something that holds his foot in place? I think he should. So I'm going to drop that in there, and that must sort of go back there and attach up to the saddle somehow. Mark, why don't you put a little more thought into these videos, man? How does the stirrup attach? In any case, I think we're getting near the end of this penciling stage, and what I want to do is start to get into the setting, this sort of snowscape that he's going across, and maybe indicate some mountains in the background. And then we're probably going to be nearing the end of this first video and save the coloring and the final sort of pencil lines for next week. But let's go ahead. I'm going to put in some basic guidelines for where I intend to put the mountains. Okay, so you can see I just dropped in a few lines here to create some sense of location high up in the Alpines. And later on, I suppose, next week, when I get to adding color, I'm going to be doing quite a lot in terms of indicating snow and shadows across this mountain landscape. In fact, but most of this mountain, I think, is going to be rendered by way of color rather than line, and that'll be a technique for showing you how to push something back, make it seem like it's further away. But all that will be coming next week when we get into that, get into the whole coloring and sort of polishing phase of finishing this off. And, you know, basically that was all that I really wanted to cover this week, was to focus on getting these lines down and showing you sort of the pace at which I do this stuff. It's not super fast. You can see I take my time with it. And, you know, also wanted to get sort of into the conceptual stuff, because I don't often talk about that part of it, you know, the sort of idea aspect of it. Very often I'm just like, here, put this line here, and then put this line there. And sometimes I think it's maybe more useful, or certainly is a little useful for some people to hear about the thinking, like why are you putting these lines there? Well, what is the idea behind this illustration? So let me know what you think about that in terms of future videos. I can do more videos like this that talk about the sort of conceptual, the creative part of coming up with a drawing like this, coming up with a world like this in a way. And again, I want to just tip my hat one more time to James Gurney, the marvelous illustrator who, you know, I don't know if he was the very first person who tried to do illustrations of a world in which humans and dinosaurs coexisted. There are probably other people who had done that, but he certainly took it to this really higher level in terms of realism and just really committing to the idea and exploring it. And I don't think anyone would argue that he is the real master of that type of illustration. Well, I'm going to do in time-lapse just some final little pencil-y finishing stuff just to wrap this up, and then I'll come back with some final words. Alright, well, I think we've reached the end of this video, getting all the pencils, the details in place. And next week, for those of you who come back to finish this off, you're going to see me add the colors and the line work. I don't think I'm going to be inking this one. I want to do something a little different. Last time I used, you know, for that giant robot illustration I did a while back, I used markers and ink. This time I think it's going to be watercolor and maybe my trusty black Prismacolor in terms of adding black lines on top of what we already have here. But let's go ahead and thank everyone who has helped me by getting any of my books, Brody's Ghost and Miki Falls, the 2 graphic novel series, as well as Mastering Manga and Mastering Manga 2. I really do greatly appreciate the support of those of you who get those books. Sometimes I even hear from people in foreign countries who've gone to really great efforts to get those books, and that really means a lot to me. Thank you so much for supporting me that way. But let's go ahead and lay down this pencil. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.